make men happy every single day. But yeah, I do have a thing for older men, 100%. And married men. I feel like the NHS is taken advantage by people on benefits. And I didn't even do anything to him. I just walked in the room and he finished.
So this is Katie Robertson. Katie Robertson is one of those people within the OF world who does these rage bait tactics, right? Similarly to that of Lily Phillips and similarly to that of Bonnie Blue. But she's kind of like the less or most, least talked about or least successful one of all of them. She blew to popularity by claiming that when Molly May and Tommy Fury broke up, she was the reason. And she put out some photos of these clearly, photoshopped images of her with Tommy Fury on private jets and G-Wagons and all the rest of it, claiming that she was the reason that they broke up. Now, Tommy Fury loosely spoke about it in his Men's Health, interview, where he said that, there were people claiming that they were the reason that we broke up and basically refuted it. And then Molly May had a documentary come out on Amazon Prime, I think it was, where she basically said that the reason that they broke up was because Tommy had a quite serious alcohol addiction, which caused them a lot of turbulence within the household. So they decided to part ways. So this woman, then, after that hype kind of died down, and she got the initial boost of viewers to her OF, she started doing some other very degenerate things. These degenerate things included throwing underwear at her dad's bald head till they stuck to his head, right? Her underwear. And also just doing other weird and dodgy things with her father. Now, let's not forget that her dad was a head teacher at a school. Now, when these videos started going viral, the school approached her dad and were basically like, look, you're gonna have to jump before you get pushed, and basically forced him into an early retirement because of her online antics, which is absolutely deplorable. But apparently he's come out and said that everything's absolutely fine, so, I guess we just have to take that as it is. Now, Katie Robertson has just come out on a recent podcast with Rory Paints Dates. She was on this podcast when she kind of first came to popularity, but now she's gone back onto it in the hopes of, regaining a little bit of publicity, a little bit of popularity to try and, I guess, force more people into her OF. And she's come up with some very, very, very odd claims. She's going down the route of apparently being pregnant, which is something that we've already seen with Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue, so kind of get original, Katie. And she's also made some very interesting comments with regards to the NHS, all of which we're going to be breaking down in today's video because it is kind of weird. So, yeah, strap yourselves in because this one's gonna get ropey. So, within the podcast, there's a lot that's spoken about. Now, Katie Robertson, of course, like we've said, thrives on shock value and creating content that she calls quote-unquote daddy content, which is engaging with older men, which she admits fuels both her income and public hate. So this woman literally runs on public scrutiny. Like, her career literally would not survive if she did not have public hate, which is really weird in and of itself, the fact that this person wants to be hated publicly so it can fuel her career, but each to their own, I suppose. She also acknowledges her online character as exaggerated, claiming that she's, quote, nicer in person than her stories though wild are true. So she claims that everything that she says online is 100% true. And her content strategy involves staying original, avoiding copying others like Bonnie Blue, and leaning into a niche, provocative ideas to stay relevant on platforms like TikTok and OF. Now, in my opinion, she is, she is just no different to Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips in that sense, but I guess, again, it is each to their own. Now, Katie also reveals that she is apparently 3 weeks pregnant, with a footballer in an open relationship, a dynamic that she defends as practical for her job and lifestyle, and she's undecided about continuing OF content during the pregnancy, but notes there's a market for pregnant content, though she'd likely hire a nanny to shield her from public scrutiny, or, you know, hide her child. So, you know, if she is actually pregnant, it seems like there is some kind of preventative measures in place to make sure that her child is at least somewhat protected from the internet. And if you're going to be as hated and as rage baity as as Katie Robertson is, then that's probably the best for the child. I mean, my lord, God bless that child when they are born. And I wouldn't be surprised if they continued making OF content whilst pregnant, if they actually are pregnant, because we've seen it in the past. There is a huge niche for that kind of thing, and, you know, money is the ultimate devil when it comes to these women. It's just money, money, money. Money talks. Then what's interesting is the kind of criticism of OF management companies. So Katie basically exposes OF management agencies as exploitative, taking 50 to 60% of creators' earnings while offering little value, likening them to modern day pimps. She warns about agencies targeting younger women, even 17-year-olds, which we know is, yes, legal, right? But it's this argument of legality versus morality. With promises of fame and pushing them into explicit content for profit, even without proper contracts or consent. And Katie left her agency to maintain control over her content and chat, emphasizing the importance of authenticity with subscribers. Now, that's kind of an ironic statement, that she's like, you know, I want to maintain transparency and, you know, openness with my fan base, which is on the surface fine, but when your initial boost to, you know, fame, if you want to call it that, more infamy, was based off of a lie that you slept with Tommy Fury and that was the reason that you ended up breaking up a relationship, then that's kind of a hypocritical statement to make. It was very obvious that that was all fake, that that was not a genuine thing, and you were doing that to try and get like fame and clout, right? So to then be like taking the moral high ground and being like, you've got to remain authenticity with your audience or else they sniff through it. Your career started with you lying to your audience. Anyway, we move on. Katie left her agency, like I said, but then there's also some very controversial views on the NHS and on benefits. Now, if there's one thing that you don't really target online, it's a demographic of people that might be financially struggling, alright? And, you know, not many people are proud to claim that they're on benefits, but ultimately it's a necessity for some people to keep a roof over their heads. And they shouldn't be bashed for that. Some people work their asses off, and because of the economy and because of the climate of the country and the world at the moment, that might be the only way that they're able to keep a roof over their heads and foods on their kids' tables. So, you know, this is going to be a very hard-hitting one. Now, Katie criticises the NHS, claiming that it is overburdened by people on benefits who exploit free healthcare, delaying care for anyone who needs it. For example, her grandmother, who died at the age of 101. Now, she argues that private healthcare is superior and expresses frustration at high tax funding benefits and a stance likely to spark debate among viewers. Now, there is a lot of caveats to this that I've seen in the comment section of this video and also kind of online surrounding this. Now, of course, her grandmother at the age of 101, you know, rest in peace. Sorry for your loss, Katie Robertson, right? No one wants to lose a grandmother, but she had some fucking good innings to get to 101. And by that point, you know, obviously the NHS, yes, is massively overburdened, but that's not necessarily because of people who exploit free healthcare. It's also because of understaffing, underfunding, right? There's so many issues within the NHS that goes a lot deeper than people exploiting free healthcare. I won't argue that that's, you know, sometimes an issue, that there are people that exploit the free healthcare, but that's not the be-all and end-all of healthcare, right? And, you know, that might spark a bit of debate. Obviously, it's a very political point of view, the NHS has been on its knees for ages, and no government seems to be supporting it in any capacity, no matter how much they promise to support the NHS, right? I feel like as someone from the UK, we are blessed to have an NHS. To know that if I break my leg, I can go to the hospital and get it patched up and sent home. Like, yes, there might be a bit of a wait in A&E, but at least I'm not going to be walking out with a potential $500,000 bill for casts, for splints, for, you know, pins if you need them for operations and stuff like this, if that's the route that they decide to go down. We're blessed to have an NHS, and I feel like, you know, criticising it is not her place to do. Just my opinion on that one. Anyway, she then goes on to talk about financial success and her lifestyle. So, Katie's provocative content has made her financially successful, earning up to £70,000 a month, peaking at £200,000 after viral exposure. Though taxes reduce her take-home significantly. She lives a luxurious lifestyle, planning to base herself in Dubai for tax benefits while creating content in other countries due to Dubai's strict laws. Despite her wealth, she is critical of care home costs, noting that her grandmother's £7,500 monthly fees drained family savings, highlighting inequalities in healthcare funding. Yeah, that's by the by. You know, I guess it's one of those things. There are some people who get it funded through the government and through the NHS if, you know, the families don't have the means to support someone going into a care home, if that's what's suggested. It is an expensive thing to do. You know, some care homes I know, because we've just had a relative go into a care home, it's very expensive, very, very pricey. So, you know, I can't really argue with that. But again, it's really odd that an OF creator is going on to a podcast and kind of known for their, like, you know, sex work, and is basically getting very political. It's a really weird podcast. It kind of was so left field to watch. Then there's engaging with older subscribers. Now, obviously, this is Katie Robertson's bread and butter, right? So you've got Bonnie Blue, who's the quote-unquote barely legal one. You've got Lily Phillips, who's basically doing what Bonnie Blue does, but trying to one-up it. And then you've got Katie Robertson, who's basically gone a whole different direction and is basically like, I'm going to go for as old a guy as possible. That's her kind of niche, I suppose. Now, Katie shares stories of her older subscribers, including an 85-year-old who paid her for labiaplasty, and a 89-year-old who left his wife to be her, quote, internet girlfriend. Very interesting. And she plans to create TikTok content in a care home, dancing for elderly men, framing it as both a service and a way to monetize her older fan base. Again, this begs the question of morality and also, you know, dignity, you know, not just for Katie, but also for the people in these care homes. Like, obviously, it's people's money. They can spend it how they choose to. If they choose to pay a 20-odd-year-old to dance for them, then fine. But surely that should be enough. Like, is necessarily, you know, content farming from that kind of thing okay? I don't know. There's a lot of questions to be asked here. And then she starts to defend her choices and future plans. Now, Katie stands by her career, arguing that she makes men happy and doesn't harm anyone, dismissing haters as jealous of her success. She aspires to transition into a fitness influencer role, reducing explicit content and focusing on gym-related posts, showing a desire to diversify her brand. Despite her bold persona, she admits to some regret and shyness in person, revealing a complex personality behind the controversy. Now, obviously, she wants to go down a route of fitness influencing, which is far more PG, I suppose. But it's a very saturated market, and the question is how successful will that be? If she's built a career on OF and, you know, creating that kind of content, will she be successful? I love to see people be successful, you know, so I would, you know, if she does it, all power to her. I hope that she does well. I hope it goes well for her. But I just find it a very odd transition. I don't think that's hypocritical to say, or like, you know, not like, it's not like I'm saying one thing and then meaning another. Like, I genuinely hope that she does well with what she chooses to do. And I wouldn't I wouldn't say I'm a hater, I wouldn't say I'm jealous of her success, but at the same time, it's how she does things that like really gets under my skin, because there are people out there who will, you know, like, I forget her name. She was on the podcast and she got berated by the Blue Tick podcast or whatever they're called. The one that got cancelled in the end. And she does OF, but then she kind of, you know, gives money to and buys properties and, you know, pays for people to live in them that are struggling financially, like she was at one point. And, you know, she doesn't use rage bait tactics to like to create that kind of career. So I respect it, right? Because yes, she is doing adult content. That's not an issue. And she's trying to, you know, use her influence and money and financial gain to not just better her life, but better other people's lives. But then you've got people like Bonnie Blue, Lily Phillips, and Katie Robertson, who claim that they've broken up famous relationships, get their dad forced into early retirement, and then try and take the moral high ground and claim that everyone's a hater because they're so successful. Like, no, you're just not you're not a decent person, you know? At least your character online isn't decent, and that's where the issue comes in, because you could be the sweetest, nicest person behind the scenes, but that's not what people see. So you, of course, are going to be judged on the character that you put out. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. While you're down there, jump scare the hell out of that like button and subscribe. And until next time, I'll spook you later. Peace.